Hey, Matt.
Greetings, Mike.
Podcast.
Undoubtedly.
Prithee, let us do that thing. I'll,
Huzzah.
forsooth. I don't know. Oh, God. Welcome to Hacking the Grepson, a podcast where I mess up the intro because I try to improvise it. I am Mike. I am here with Matt.
Hello.
Apparently, I've started saying that. I don't know why I didn't say it in the other 50 episodes, but now I'm saying that. How are you, Matt?
I am well, Mike. How are you?
But you're not a well.
I'm not a well.
I cannot
because
throw a coin into you and wish.
I mean, you can, but I wouldn't appreciate it.
Excellent. All right. Well, now that we've set the tone properly, I hear, pray tell, that you wish to talk about technical interviews, which is something that we actually have an episode about approximately 40 some odd thousand years ago. But there's some new insights you have, and maybe even a new interview question that we came upon recently that at least I thought would be a good interview for the canon of interview questions.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of interviews lately. I've been conducting a lot of interviews, I guess. I'm not going to them. I'm not interviewing. I'm the interviewer. Just to be clear.
Yes.
And so it's, top of mind right now. And I was thinking about the different types of technical interviews that one might go through. And as well as just, I don't know how much we touched on it before because I have a terrible memory. But things like how certain aspects of interviews are perceived by both sides of the interview table, right? Like, both sides are trying to sell the other on something. The interviewer is selling on the company, and the interviewee is selling themselves. And then there's just sort of like general. If you have a panel interview versus individuals and how many rounds of interviews do you have, all those things add up, and I think they weigh differently to different people. In particular, I think the more interview rounds you have, the harder it is on the interviewee.
I mean, I would assume so. I've never done, I think, more than like 2 rounds, like maybe a screening and then like an actual interview. But yeah, I've heard at, the big tech companies that you could go through 4 or 5 rounds, and that sounds overwhelming and off-putting. Is it useful, do you think, as someone who does this a lot?
Yeah, I think it is useful to the company. Is it useful to the person that is interviewing? Somewhat. I mean, let's just start there, right? Different, what kinds of rounds of interviews might someone have? Usually the first interview you're going to have with any company is not a technical one. It's going to be with like HR and like, do you exist? Are you real? Is your resume real? Did you actually, are you lying?
Can I communicate with you for more than a few seconds?
Are you, is it even in the realm of possibility that you're a good fit for this company? Are we going to have some like philosophical headbutting right off the bat and like, this isn't going to work? Is your salary range in the right region?
Yeah.
Like you're going to talk to HR or the recruiting team first.
Do you have like any anecdotes of someone who just like amazingly couldn't make the first cut that you heard about and it was wild?
No, this is this is the biggest company I've worked for that's a tech company. And prior to this, I was basically the person doing all of those things when I would interview. I was multiple rounds.
Matt, multiple rounds.
But like HR would do the basic part of like, okay, does this person exist? Kind of thing. And is their salary? I've never heard of anyone like completely failing there. I can see why someone might. At my company, there's a culture document that we send out to prospective candidates before before we bring them in for the rest of it. And that was really interesting to me because I really resonated with the culture document. I was like, oh, I love this. This is the kind of place I would like to work. But I could see how if somebody was like, oh, I don't like this whole you have to be part of a team culture.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a rock star programmer that's a diva, right? Like I could see,
Yeah.
if you're that kind of person and that comes across, I could see somebody flaming out right away in there. But I think most people probably drop out during the technical screen.
Well, also, I mean, you have to be, a fairly sizable company to have a culture document. Like, I don't
Oh,
think I've
for
worked
sure.
for any company that had a culture document that existed, let alone to send to prospective clients. I mean,
Yeah.
like, do
The
you
closest
think
you
that?
usually get's like a mission statement.
Yeah, or you Google the company and you kind of see like what they're about. But I'm curious, like, do you think that is? I mean, for your company or for companies of that size, like that's a useful like filtering thing or filtering
I think
device?
so. I mean,
Hmm.
one of the big things I am personally looking for when I'm interviewing someone, and this includes if I'm doing a technical screening or any of the other rounds, I'm looking for would I be willing to work with this person?
Hmm.
And cultural fit is actually pretty big. If you're a jerk, no one wants to work with you, and it's just going to cause more problems.
Yeah.
And you might be a brilliant jerk, and there are places that where that kind of thing thrives. But then that is the culture of that company.
Right.
And being able to see like, oh, this is a person that will be able to, if you work at a company and it's all brilliant jerks, and you try to hire someone like me who's smart and not a jerk, but not, I wouldn't say I'm brilliant,
Hmm.
and I can be a jerk. I wouldn't fit in. I would wash out right away, and that's expensive for the company.
Yeah.
The hiring someone is not cheap. You're spending a lot of time and resources to advertise the job, to have people from your company spend time talking to individual candidates, to vet them, all that other stuff, and then hiring them on is itself costs money, and then there's
Hmm.
overhead involved with that. And so if somebody starts working somewhere and then immediately didn't work out, that's not good for anyone.
Yeah.
No
So
one
so you
wants that.
mentioned there's like the initial screening and then there's like possibly a technical interview. What other kind of rounds would there be?
Yeah. So back in the pre-remote days, what I usually saw was you'd have like your HR phone screen, and then you would usually have like a technical phone screen, which
Hmm.
wasn't even like a video chat. It was usually literally on the phone, and that was often just talking about. I don't see this as much anymore. I didn't encounter it once in my job search, which was post 2020. But it used to be that I would call somebody that the phone screen would happen, and it would just be a lot of discussion of like talking through the resume and just making sure that the person could speak intelligently to the things on their resume and from a technical perspective, and maybe you ask them like one or two really high level questions, but it was you don't have like a shared coding environment or any of those
Hmm.
other things. It was literally just talking to somebody, and that was even more true 20 years ago or whatever when I was first entering the workforce. Nowadays, I think the first technical screen that you usually would encounter would be more of a virtual session like this, like
Hmm.
how we are doing this recording. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Zoom or Slack or whatever, Google Meet, Discord. I don't know. Well, however
Google
people are
veggies,
interviewing these
something.
days. Uh, um, and then yeah, often you'll have somebody sharing their screen or a shared document or something so that you can ask them a more detailed question, like what I would usually have done at the tech screen of somebody that's come in for an interview in person and have them go to the whiteboard, right? Here's
Hmm.
a programming question, write some code. And that was
Right.
pseudocode, but now it's actual code that people are expected to write live while someone's watching them, which is, incidentally, the worst way to write code. Uh,
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like anything you just said.
I don't like it either. Um, I have interviewed places, and I really like this approach. That sent me home with a problem, and it's
Hmm.
like, do this and then come talk to me about it. That
Hmm.
worked great. That's probably the most useful to me. That usually wouldn't happen in your first round. Your first round is going to be something like, you know, write me Fibonacci sequence recursively or whatever. And then be able to talk about it. That's for like a junior grade. Although I've interviewed senior people that couldn't do a lot of these things. So it's really just make sure this person is in fact technical and can solve problems, and usually there's also a little bit of that feeling out for culture and whatnot at that time. Yeah, so that's sort of like the first round that you'll usually go through, or first 2 rounds. You got the HR screening and then the technical screening. And then, depending on the company, I've seen a bunch of different things. For software, typically there's like a system design. For a more senior person, there's usually like a system design thing, which is, okay, we have this type of system we're going to build. How would you arrange that? Like from a really high level, like what's the design of that system look like? I've seen more in-depth problem-solving rounds. And then the other one that usually people will encounter will be a meeting with like a hiring manager. So the person that you're going to be working with most often, like the person who will be your manager, usually that person's going to interview you, and that's a completely separate type of interview than all the technical ones. But that's usually one of the... So like 3 rounds is kind of the minimum of what I would expect to see of getting hired anywhere. HR, tech screen, interview with a manager. Maybe there's ones where the manager is technical enough where they could also do that part of it and the HR part, and maybe just get one. But I think generally speaking, at mid-size and above, you're going to see at least those kind of 3 levels. And obviously, that's the more senior you are, the more likely you are to have more rounds. Junior person, I can tell within 10 minutes of talking to somebody if I'm going to hire them more often than not.
So are you saying that if you designed the hiring system at a company, it would just be you in 10 minutes?
No.
Because all the rest is overhead, right?
Yeah. No, because I suppose I should say 10 minutes is usually enough for me to know I'm not going to hire somebody, would be more accurate. I'm like, this person is not going to be a good fit. But I will work with them for the next hour anyway. And, maybe that'll help them in the future. But that is for junior type folks or new grads or interns. The more senior, like if I was interviewing somebody at my level, that's hard. I don't like doing those interviews, to be honest.
Well, how would that how would you go about that differently?
So usually that's where you're gonna get more of those like system design, problem solving type questions, because those are harder to fake an answer to than like a programming question, especially these days. If you're remote, people are just shoving stuff into ChatGPT,
right?
Which is really annoying. I definitely have had people do that, and it's really obvious when you do that. So don't do that. If you're listening to this and you're interviewing somewhere, don't do that. We know. We can tell.
Yeah,
it's really obvious. You're not subtle.
But the follow-up question of that is, how much longer will it be so obvious?
It's not the answer that's obvious. It's that they have to stop talking to you and type things into the search engine so that they can get an answer.
Oh, so you're talking about like that you can tell that they're doing it right now remotely, not just that the output has come from it. Yeah. Oh, okay.
And before this, it was, sending text messages to people or chatting with them or talking to your friend who was sitting on the other side of the monitor. And all those things, super obvious. People are not as sneaky as they think they are.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know what you get out of that. At most, you get hired and then immediately fired because you can't actually do the job. I don't know.
I mean, depending on the company, the hardest part may just be getting hired. And once you're in, you can kind of fake your way through some of it. I don't know.
I don't know either. Senior folks, I still ask the same questions of senior level engineers as I would for a junior engineer. I just expect them to get the answer faster.
Okay.
Be better at answering it and be able to discuss the trade-offs better. because I do expect that kind of level, and then I'll dive into deeper things like system design and whatnot. Where I'm at now, I actually do not get to make up my own questions. Because we're a large enough company and there's enough applicants and there's enough people doing the interviews that we don't have the same person interviewing all of them. It's so there's like, here is the list of questions. Please ask one of these.
Right. The few times that I've been in a room that someone has been applying for a job, it's been like a set of questions that even though you don't want to ask, you have to ask them all. Even if after the first two questions you're like, okay, there's no point in asking the rest of these, but you have to give them a fair shot.
Yep.
That can be kind of excruciating. I was curious. I remember on our last episode where we talked about these, you had this one interview question that you said you used to use a lot. Something about square roots.
Square roots.
Yeah. Do you still find that useful, or do you have like some new questions that you like to ask?
If the person that is still my favorite question. I
Okay.
get the most information from somebody from that question. And even if they've heard it, I think I could still understand enough. I could still ask them enough questions about it to know if they really understood the question or not. And really understood the solution and why it's good or not. I'm sure I said it on the podcast before, and I've told many people this. The best answer I ever got to that question was the wrong answer.
Right.
Which is-
Except they took a long time and explained their thinking while they were doing it, I think, right?
And I completely disagreed with their way to do it, and it didn't work, but I would have hired that person in a second. Because I was like, oh, that's a really brilliant way of looking at that. It doesn't work for this particular problem, and you're over-engineering. But in an interview, people are nervous, and they screw up more. I give a lot of grace. I view my job when I'm interviewing somebody is to make them comfortable enough in the interview to be able to actually be able to be themselves, like at a technical level, because no one is at their best. Okay, most people are not at their best.
If you're a rock star, you're at your best at all times.
Yeah. Well, but like, I'm neurodivergent. I'm introverted. Interviews are hard for me because I have to deal with people. But also I have 15 years of improv experience, so I can fake that really well.
Yeah. So are you saying like jobs that you've interviewed for in the past 15 years have been a lot easier than the first 15 years of your career or whatever, just because of that?
For sure. And that also is true on the other side of the table when I'm doing the interviews.
Yeah.
Significantly easier having done improv. I still find all these things exhausting, but I know the personality I need to inhabit in order to do them and make them successful and useful. And then I leave and I'm tired.
Well, I really appreciate how you put that, because I mean that's what I would expect of you, Matt. That you would look at it at an interview as a way to facilitate like you're not trying to make it a gauntlet, because I feel like there's plenty of places that do see the interview like a gauntlet. It's like only the strong shall survive, and we're trying to weed out the weaklings. But like you said, most people in interviews, it's not a fair representation of what they can do, and so it's not fair to use it that way.
Yeah, I want you to succeed. I honestly hate interviews where people do badly because they're really boring. I'm like, if I've decided 10 minutes into an hour-long interview that you're not going to get hired unless you just absolutely blow me away at some point in time, which has never happened ever. Well, I've never been like, I just don't see myself hiring this person, then had them do something. And I was like, oh, I was wrong. It's never happened. In 20-something years, never happened. I would love for it to, but my pattern recognition skills are too high. But it sucks, and I feel bad for the person. And sometimes you'll interview somebody and they're just delightful as a person, and they can't do the problem.
Yeah,
And that makes you feel bad.
yeah. That's
And then
sad.
there's the other side of that where they're really good at the problem, but they're terrible people.
Yeah,
I don't feel as bad then. I just want to leave.
Yeah. So I did want to bring up the interview question that came up recently, just because I think it's a good interview question, and I'm curious. Like, let's just get our answer to it on the record. So I was looking at a post on the social somewhere, and it was essentially like, okay, here's the issue. You set an alarm for 2:30 a.m. Why you're doing it at 2:30 a.m. irrelevant, but still, you're setting it for 2:30 a.m. Now, the problem is 2:30 a.m. this time, the next time it's going to happen, happens during a daylight savings time change. So technically, after 1:59:59 rolls over to 2 a.m., it skips 2 a.m. to 2:59 a.m. and goes to 3 a.m. So your alarm falls into a void of negative time and space. Now that's a problem, of course, and there's different ways you could approach that. But assuming you had a smart device that knew how to do something about that, what should the device do? And some of the options they gave were it should go back to 1:30. It should go off a half an hour before the time change, essentially. It should go off at 3:30, so or 3 a.m., just push it to the next available time period. Or maybe it shouldn't go off at all because you're dumb and you shouldn't have set an alarm for negative time space. Or something else. So I'm curious, Matt, what would you do about this conundrum?
Well, what I like about this question is there is not a right answer. Because I can make an argument for all of those things and several other.
I'm curious about your argument in favor of the 3 a.m. option. Because yes, I could see.
Let me give you my answer, and then I'll tell you how I would get to the 3 a.m. one.
Okay, all right.
Because that's actually my second choice.
Okay, what's your
of
first
the ones
choice?
that we're given? I think 1:30 is probably the most logical of the ones you listed, but I think the right answer is it shouldn't go off because 2:30 didn't happen. If I want an alarm to go off at 2:30 and 2:30 does not occur, there should be no alarm.
Okay.
But 3 o'clock would be my next choice, personally, because the way I would look at it is 3 o'clock is the first time after 2:30 that exists. It was 1:59. Like, it's the same use case I would view as if my phone happened to reboot during that time. Or if I went through a time zone change, right? Like, I probably still want, if I have a recurring alarm, I probably want some alert of that. And I don't care so much about when it is as like, oh, okay, I need to have done this.
Did you just say you didn't care when the alarm you set for a specific time goes off?
I mean, like, I have alarms set for like taking my medication, and I don't really need it at that exact time. It's more like, okay, it's, a couple hours before I'm probably going to go to bed, right? So for an alarm like that, yeah, just the next time is fine.
Okay.
And I could make that, and the same exact argument in my mind would be held for at 1:59, right? Right. It's like, it's the next one that's going to happen. So like right on that minute, to me, is the most logical time to set off the alarm at all. If you're going to set it off, but I still think don't.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Is that the end of your answer?
No, because I have another answer, but
okay,
it
we'll do
goes
that
off
one.
of the
Go ahead.
Goes off the options that you gave, which is, I think you did say it, which is when you're setting the alarm, there should be a warning. Like, hey, 2:30 might not happen. Although that doesn't take the edge cases that I mentioned for like phone rebooting and all those other things happen, because you don't know that that's going to happen. But time changes are, that daylight savings time exists. Like, my phone knows that.
Right.
It knows how to deal with that. So I would want a warning, and then, or an option to be set somewhere.
Yes. I think, so I brought this up with my wife, and we, I think she was the first one to say that, like, it just wouldn't go off. And when she said that, I was like, well, yeah, basically, like, if it's a dumb device with no smarts whatsoever, then yes, that's what would happen. It just would not go off because it would just be waiting for 2:30 to happen. 2:30 does not happen. It doesn't go off. And then it goes off the next, if it's recurring, it goes off the next time 2:30 happens, but not the very next time that you're hoping it might go off. Now, I would say I would go for the 1:59 or the 1:30, whatever, sometime before the alarm rather than after the alarm, because I think usually when people set alarms, if it's going to go off at the wrong time, you want it to go off sooner than that thing is going to happen to give yourself time to prepare. Whereas if it goes off after the thing happens, now you're late to something. And so I think it's
I'd be
less
super
user
annoyed
hostile.
if I was like, wake me up at 2:30 and at 1:30 I was woken up. I'd be like, no, I wanted to sleep until 2:30.
Well, so then we get into it needs more context. Like, why are you setting this alarm?
Yes.
Are you setting it so that you can get up to catch your flight, or are you getting it up because you want to get a head start on the day? And if it's to catch a flight, if it went off after 2:30, I think I'd be more mad than
Then
if
it's
it
a
went off
problem.
beforehand. Yeah. So
I agree.
yeah. So I think to take that into account, I would have it go off before instead of after, just in case it is timely. But obviously, I agree with you. The best thing, if it's a smart device, is that if you set an alarm for a non-existent time, it should warn you, hey, daylight savings is coming up. This is not going to happen. Would you like to set this at a different time? In order to, ameliorate that. Now, to bring up your edge case of what if my phone reboots in the middle of the time change or something like that, I think at that point, the only thing it can do is go off at 3 a.m. because that's, as long as it comes back on by 3 a.m. Now, what if your phone doesn't reboot until 3:01? Does it still do the alarm or does it just skip it?
Like, I think the alarm, if it's going to go off at all, that's not at the actual time that it's set for.
Right.
It makes the most sense to me to go off the first time it can, post that time.
That is a very
So
programmer response. Yes, I can see the code in my head.
It's like
If timestamp is greater than or equal to alarm time, go off.
exactly. But then there's an even bigger edge case, which is like, okay, what if my phone's off for 24 hours? What happens then? So there's got to be some statute of limitations. So there's probably you probably got to use the 12-hour rule on that one.
Yeah.
Like, okay, once I'm 12 hours past it, that's too much.
Right.
And like at a minimum.
You missed your flight. Sorry, buddy. Don't set an alarm. And that's why it keeps coming back to if we're dealing with a smart device, which the original question was posed, it was couched as a smart device, what should it do? It should really just warn you. It should warn you that there is a problem with your input. You may not get the output desired. Please take precautions for this because we can only do so much.
When should it warn you of that?
When you set it.
What if I set a recurring alarm for 2:30 a.m.?
Well, then it should say, hey, this recurring alarm will never go off because X.
No, it will go off, just not for this one day a year.
Oh, I see.
It won't go off.
Well,
Every day at 2:30 a.m. I want my alarm to go off.
But there's one
to say scream into the void, and then on one day a year I'm not gonna get my reminder. Is a weird. I'm not gonna remember that. Is what
Right.
that boils down to. So
Right.
I would say if it's gonna warn, I want a warning that day. Like, hey, we noticed you have an alarm coming up, but did you know that there's daylight savings time?
Yeah.
And daylight savings time is stupid and doesn't need to exist anymore, but it does. So do you really want, what time would you like us to wake you up? Or
Yeah.
what time would you like the alarm to go off? Give me have it at 2:30 isn't going to exist tonight.
yeah, it's
Here's
got to be.
what
It's got to be before 2 a.m. or after 2:59. Pick one of those times.
Yeah.
It should just be grayed out, like in the time selection box. Those combinations should not be valid input. Essentially.
I think a better answer would be that during daylight savings time, how we should actually treat clocks instead of them jumping an hour is that just for that hour, time should be double. It should go twice as fast. So
Ooh.
a minute is 30 seconds.
Oh, I mean, I think that opens up That opens up a can of something. I'm not sure if it's worms,
Yeah.
but it opens up something.
So then it would go off at basically 2:15.
Yeah. Also, like, I mean, these kinds of questions, as I mentioned in the very beginning of it, is should not be asked in a vacuum. I mean, there's obviously a technical, logical solution that one could put in for this, but really you have to be like, why are we setting recurring alarms for 2:30 a.m. and this is more of a personal social issue, not a technical issue. Like is this should we worry about this as much as something that happens at 9 a.m. or noon or something? I don't know.
I have some friends who absolutely despise these kind of questions as interview questions. I think they can tell you quite a bit about the person that's being interviewed. Because the point of this isn't to get the right answer. The point of this question is the discussion about it.
Right.
It's what questions are you if I'm interviewing a software developer and I ask this question, I don't want how do you write the code to do this thing? I told you to write an alarm clock and you are aware of this use case. What are you going to do? I want you to ask me questions. Like, I want you to say, this needs more context. There's no right answer to this.
Yeah.
Here's the different rationale for the different time. I want you to be able to discuss any time I say it should be this, it should be 1:59, it should be 3 o'clock, it should be 1:30, it should be 3:30, it shouldn't go off. I want you to be able to justify any of those. Even if you don't agree with them, I want you to be able to explain why it might make sense. Because that tells me a lot about you. And then tell me which one you would go with, because then you're discussing trade-offs. And trade-offs are a huge part of software development.
Yeah.
Am I going to take up more space or am I going to run faster?
Yeah. Well, and also, like, if you're designing a phone and its alarm function versus a $10 alarm clock that has, the logic baked into the circuit board that you can't change later, you may have a different answer, or you might go about it differently, depending on the use case.
Because, I think 3:30 is what would happen for those generally. Because I think most alarm clocks that can handle daylight savings time, now I don't know what they would do. But I'm thinking they would just be like, it would just be like, okay, I'm setting, seconds until alarm.
Right.
And seconds until is 24 hours, basically, from the last time.
Right.
And, okay, well, that's 3:30.
So it's relative to the time, not relative to, or it's not the absolute time. It's the relative to the last thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's my alarm has nothing to do with daylight savings time is I think the way I would view it. Because same question could hold true for what is it, next week or whenever the time changes and we fall back?
Yeah.
Is if I have an alarm set for, is it that we relive 2 o'clock twice? I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or is it that we relive 1 o'clock twice? Well, whichever one of those it is. If I set it for that half hour, right, the one that happens twice, does my alarm go off twice?
Right.
Because that's worse.
Yeah,
depending on the context.
Right. Yeah. What worse is subjective, but it is less ideal because I think the platonic ideal of an alarm that you set for a time is that it goes off once in a 24-hour period. And if it doesn't go off, that's not ideal. If it goes off twice, that's not ideal. But what's worse, I don't know. I would think an alarm not going off is worse than an alarm going off twice. You set an alarm to remind yourself. If it never reminds you, it has failed the foundational description of an alarm. It has not alarmed you in any way, shape, or form.
Or you are alarmed because it didn't alarm you.
Yes, or you slept through it and you actually got a good night's sleep because you didn't wake up at 2:30 for whatever you're waking up for. I feel sorry for you.
Oh, it changes in November this year. That's weird.
Yeah, well, yeah. Over our lifetime, they've changed the days that these things happen multiple times, and it's the kind of thing that like humans are very good at adapting to, and computers not as much because they just want a recurring, consistent system, and they, edge cases are our enemy. We want to eliminate the edge cases. But humanity is full of edge cases, unfortunately.
Yeah. What I would really hope that the person would come up with if I said you are writing a alarm clock software application, how do you treat this case? I would hope they would come up with I would alert the user like 12 hours before or 24 hours before or what. Yeah, when the previous alarm is turned off, say, okay, by the way, the next time this is going to happen, you're going to have this issue. What would you like to do?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the answer I would like them to get to.
Yeah.
But then be able to discuss all of the different possible ways that that could be wrong or be viewed as wrong by somebody.
Right. So do you think that you will put this in your quiver of interview questions in the future?
Possibly. I can see situations where I might want to discuss where I might just want to see how someone thinks. And I didn't, maybe they aced my programming question, but I'm still not sure on them. I could see asking a question like this.
I like it mainly because I've done plenty of, fairly basic time and date programming where I'm just trying to schedule something or I'm trying to display a date or a time. I've done a lot of event content type or news content type. And like we actually had a custom module for a website that was just handling the calendar and putting events on it and recurring those events, but having exceptions. And like Google Calendar is a marvel that exists and that it largely handles all of that stuff, because that stuff is still a nightmare. It's not that it's not solved, but like you said, with the answer to that question, there's not necessarily a right answer to every edge case. It depends. But there's also just a ton of variables in the global world we live in with different times and time zones and the changing of it and leap years and et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a meaty question that everybody deals with. Everybody has to deal with time and days and calendars and when things happen, no matter what kind of job you have. And so I think it gets to the meat of that, but I don't know.
I'm looking on the on Google Calendar, since you made me think of it, to see how it treats the time that day. And at least in November, it's unclear how they do that, but let's see. So in March 10th next year is when this will happen. So I'm going to set a calendar event right now for 2:30 a.m. March 10th.
What?
Oh, it didn't let me.
What did it say?
1:30, no problem. 2:30, nope. It just I clicked 2:30 and it made it 3:30.
Well, there you go.
But let's see. Hold on. I'm gonna go back to March 3rd and set an alarm for 2:30 and say testing. And yes, it does repeat, and it repeats weekly on Sunday. And that ends after 3 occurrences because I really don't. I don't want to forget that this exists. All right. So on the 3rd, 2:30 to 3:30 a.m. The 10th, 3:30 to 4:30. That's how they do it.
Wow.
And then back on the 17th, back to 2:30 and 3:30. So Google has chosen 3:30 as the answer.
So, I mean, I'm kind of okay with that. I'm not okay with the fact that they didn't apparently warn you or alert you in any shape. Like that I don't agree with. There should at least be a dialogue thing that pops up and says, "Hey, on this day, stuff's going down. Be aware." Like if you set an alarm for time X, it should not change to a different time without some kind of notice, in my opinion.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah. So, but then other people are like, well, if it's good enough for Google, it's good enough for everyone. I don't know. That's interesting though. I'm glad you did that.
I just know I'm gonna regret setting these alarms.
Just delete it now. Just delete it now. Don't leave it. Come on.
Well, I deleted the March one, but now I'm looking at November to see if it will. I made alarms all around that time, and they just let me. So because the time exists,
Right.
So I don't know if one of them's going to go off twice. I'm genuinely curious what's going to happen with that.
Well, in a month's time, we'll know, and you can.
Oh no, because I'm deleting all these.
Okay,
right now.
good. Yeah.
I'm not waking up at 2:30 in the morning. I don't hate myself that much.
There you go. So
I don't know that I hate most people that much.
So is there anything else about tech interviews? I mean, I feel like that's a good question, but I feel like it also kind of maybe overstepped, what you were talking about. We kind of went off on a tangent.
No, I mean, this is kind of what prompted us to start thinking about interview questions here again anyway.
Yeah.
I think really the only thing I would say is if you're the person leading the interview, make the other person comfortable. And if you're the person on the other end, just try to relax.
It's only, your livelihood on the line. No bigs. I mean,
Hey, if capitalism didn't exist, this would be a lot easier.
yes. And there is the sub motto of our podcast. I need to update the website. That's why we give this away for free, though. Come on, we don't make.
That's the sub motto of my life.
Yes, Matt. I forgot what it was earlier. Matt, two worlds.
It wasn't for capitalism.
Yeah. I feel like if we haven't done an episode about tech and programming and capitalism and their relationship, I'm surprised we haven't. But I think that's got to be a future episode. Just saying.
I think we could come up with something to talk about there.
I think we could. I think there's enough meat there.
I don't know what, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think. Thank you for that insight on interviews, because I know you have a lot more experience with it. And thanks for humoring that interview question. Maybe someone in your interview room will be asked it someday in the future. Who knows? And if they do, I'd love to hear how it went.
I'll let you know.
All right. But for now, that concludes this episode of Hacking the Grepson. Thank you for joining us. If you want to listen to more episodes, you can get them at hackingthegrepson.com. We try to put out an episode every other week on Wednesday, and so look forward to those in the future. And until then, we now return you to your regularly scheduled lives already in progress.